Hello and welcome to the Best Kept Secrets of Greene County, New York podcast, where we're letting the Catskills out of the bag. I'm your host, Thomas Boomhower, and joining me today, as always, is my lovely co-host and colleague in spilling the beans on Greene County, Mark Gustavson.
Hey, Thomas.
Hello, Mark. Today, Mark and I are in Round Top, one of the many, many hamlets sprinkled throughout this county of ours, and we're sitting with Julia Joern, owner of the lovely and thriving Julia's Local, a restaurant devoted to super fresh ingredients in the community here in Round Top. Julia, thank you so much for taking the time to sit and chat with Mark and I today.
Thank you. I'm so happy you're here.
We are thrilled.
When you first reached out, we're like, oh, that's fantastic. And we originally thought the idea for Best Kept Secrets, there's 14 or 19 municipalities in Greene County. Okay. We're thinking we're going to just do one podcast for each one in the first year to share the wealth and make sure everybody gets represented and all of that. And we did our one in Cairo. And then when you called, and I'm like, okay, this is just too good to pass up. Okay, so what we're doing here is we adjusted our trajectory a little bit. We're now going to do one for every community. So there are lovely hamlets, as Thomas was saying, in Cairo. We've got Round Top and Perling and Acre, and right through here on the Heart's Content is just one of the most gorgeous areas in the world. And so when you had reached out and said, you were interested, we were really, really intrigued to come up and have this conversation.
Well, I'm so happy you're here. I agree completely. I'm obsessed with Greene County, and I think that it's one of the best kept secrets in the Catskills. I totally agree.
And that's how we got the name for the show, because my wife and I were sitting in a bar down in Athens, and a couple was up, weekenders from Brooklyn. And they said, oh, we love it up here. Greene County is the best kept secret in the world. And I'm like, okay, this is a great title for a podcast.
I also think that the Round Top is a hamlet of Cairo. It has its unique...
Cairo. Okay, this is my big deal, okay?
I always say
I'm
it
the pronunciation guide. So it's Cairo like Cheryl, okay? Care-O.
I always say K,
yeah,
like K-A-Y-O-H. We edit all that out, so I don't sound like an idiot.
This is great stuff. This is called say it like a local.
Well, I'm a new local. I've only been here since the late 90s, so I guess I have to work on that.
That's okay. So you bought an old farmhouse in 1999?
Well, I'll start sort of backwards from there.
Good.
I grew up in New Jersey, northern New Jersey in Bergen County, and as kids, we used to come up to the Catskills, kind of on day trips. I come from a really big family. It's 5 kids. There's limited resources in terms of what you could do for vacations. So we did a little hiking and exploring up here. So it was always something that was in my memory as a child, but it was really leaving New Jersey and going to college in Virginia, where I fell in love with the mountains. I went to Blacksburg, Virginia Tech, and it's like really in the heart of the Shenandoah Valley.
It really is, yeah.
It's one of the most beautiful places that you could imagine. And so after architecture school, I was down there for about 6 years. I went to New York City. And I always thought that I wanted to get 1 foot in the city and 1 foot in the country. But I'm not a city person. So I always knew somehow I needed to be upstate. And I didn't know how, or I didn't know why, I didn't know anything, really. But it was so expensive to live in New York. It obviously is now, but it really was then too. But you could find a place up here. This would have been in the 90s. So I knew I would never be able to afford to own anything in New York City, but I could afford to actually own something up here and still have a little, place in the city. I was there for a couple of years when I ended up falling in love with my now late husband, who at the time was struggling with leukemia. And we really needed to get out of the city and get fresh air. So that was our motivation, really was quite personal and somewhat extreme, which is that we didn't have time to really look around. So we were able to get a tiny little rental in Lexington, which was one of the most beautiful places here in Greene County. And we had that ideal view. You would just be looking out at just mountains and farms, and it was so incredible. But it was really far away from any facilities, like a hospital. And it was kind of far away from jumping on the thruway if there was something we needed to get back to the city for. We found a real estate broker. We made one phone call and we said we had this fantasy. It literally was a fantasy. We would love to have like a little house on a little stream and maybe like have some woods. But we met this Wayne West, Century 21. Wayne West is the best.
Wayne West and I went to high school together.
I love Wayne West so much.
All through school together in Coxsackie Athens school system. Yeah.
He's the best. He's also part of like the story 20-something years later. So Wayne drove us here. He said, meet me on Heart's Content Road. And he actually met us in the parking lot of this building, Hartmann, the old Hartmann's coffee house. Mm-hmm. And I said, I don't care what this house looks like as long as it's like near Heart's Content Road. I want to live there. Most beautiful road, best name ever. So we turned the corner, went on Blackhead Mountain Road, stepped foot into this little tiny house and bought it on the spot. And the next thing we know, we were going down to the little bank of Greene County. And they couldn't have been nicer. They couldn't have been more supportive. They couldn't have helped us more. They were incredible. We were in our 20s. We really had nothing, and they made it work for us. And of course, it's still my bank to this day.
They are an amazing asset for the county. The president of the bank, Don Gibson, is a real quality guy. I mean, he is absolutely fantastic. And they are partners with our Greene County Economic Development Corporation. They have a couple seats on the board, and they are just incredibly helpful.
I'm very fond of my Bank of Greene County people. They've just helped me so much through the years, through many ups and downs, and they just made it work for me. So fast forward, I was going back and forth between the city and Round Top, though I never felt like a city person. I never felt like a weekender. My heart was always in Round Top. And then when I did end up deciding to leave New York City for good, which was 7 years ago this summer, I knew I could always come here. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't have any plan, but I knew I had the kind of safety and security of my own home. And that's how I sort of ended up here the first time. And I also see that this is kind of the next chapter of really, really living in Round Top. I, like everybody else, was very sad to hear that Hartmann's would be closing. I was able to walk here from my house. I would come down pretty much every single day. It was open and I was here. I sometimes came down twice a day. I don't cook. And I would come down for breakfast, then I'd come down for lunch. I loved it so much. It was a huge part of my kind of experience here.
That is the one regret that I do have about that is that like Hartmann's cookies from the time I was a little boy.
I know.
They were just incredible.
I know. I saw the for sale sign and I just thought, oh, that's just so sad. What next? I sort of had no intention ever of buying this building, but it was just a conversation that I had with my neighbor across the street from me, JD, my neighbor. He'd gone to school. He grew up in Long Island and had gone to school in Boston for film, ended up in Hollywood, ended up in Los Angeles, and then had the opportunity to come back. He remembered coming to Round Top as a kid. I remember meeting him as a little boy. He was the one who told me to look at the building when it was for sale. He had kind of come to investigate out of his own curiosity, and he told me it's bigger than you think. There's something that you can do with it. I have a background in architecture, but that means nothing when you're renovating a house because architecture school is all on paper.
Right.
It's all like esoteric and it's all theoretical until you actually have to make sure your plumbing works. But that was sort of how it all started. So when I came to really look at this building with different eyes, it definitely spoke to us. So I called Wayne West. So important that he was part of the process too. So he helped me come up with a plan to purchase the building. The woman who owned it at first, there were the Hartmanns, the Hartmann family who came from Austria. Diane, who I bought the building from, who had lived upstairs. You know, everyone had lived upstairs. The Hartmanns had lived upstairs and it was originally a house. We had no idea what we were going to do with the place, not any idea. When I purchased it from Diane, she had really 60 years worth of stuff in this building. So Wayne really helped us come up with some ideas about how to make it easier for her. There was some broken equipment, some big broken like fridges. How do you even get those things out of here? What do you do with them? Just 60 years worth of stuff. So I think she was relieved that she didn't have to deal with that. She definitely took all the good stuff, all the memorabilia, all the things that were super nostalgic. That really incredible vintage cake case we gave to a very dear friend of ours who has a wonderful wine shop up in Hunter called Elevated Wines and Spirits. But he has a great little provision store next to his wine shop so that we can go visit that beautiful vintage cake case up there. He uses it for charcuteries and cheeses and things like that. We had one of Mr. Hartmann's giant mixers that was from the original bakery. We had 2 of those, but we gave it to Nina from Delightful Bites by Nina. And all the sugar and all the flour and all the stuff that Nina could use from the bakery, we gave to her. There was a huge kind of pizza oven in the back where they had done some baking that was not quite appropriate for what we were going to be doing. So we were able to donate that to our friend Dan, who is Catskill Bread Company. So there was just lots of things that were being distributed still to Greene County. And remember all the cookie cases here? Yeah, so we donated those to our friends at Glen Falls House. So they have them in their lobby for all their kind of merch and stuff. So we were happy that things found homes,
The place has been totally transformed from Hartmann's. I mean, there is this lovely Scandinavian minimalist kind of feel to it, but the bar
kept nothing.
Was not existent.
Kept nothing.
Yeah, right?
The only thing we kept were this beautiful wood on the walls. Yeah. But we started by really taking out the carpets, and we found this beautiful hardwood floor that was preserved because it was carpeted. Yep. So we thought it would be great to make a little cozy nook of a bar. And we needed a centerpiece for the bar, and we were up visiting our friends Stephen Petronio, the choreographer who lives up at Crow's Nest.
Yep.
And there was this great old vintage sink basically in his trash heap. And they were renovating their kitchen, and we asked if we could take it. So we kind of fixed it up and polished it up, and it's just this great sort of focal point for the bar. But we kept, because it was there, the original sort of kitchen cabinet. And it's very sweet, and we can sort of stash some supplies in there. But we decided to make that room into what we call a private dining room, though it's not anything exclusive. It's for everybody, but it's a very domestic feeling. It seats 4. It's off of Henning's cooking kitchen. So for some people, it's really fun to watch him work. And then the main L-shaped dining room, which was very challenging, thinking of like how to make this into an actual sort of restaurant dining room space. It's very long. It's very skinny. It's kind of unusual. But when we were just sitting where the old cake case used to be, we were just staring down this long, thin space. And then we decided to kind of break it down a little bit by putting in these really great farm doors that Henning made. I knew it was really important for me for this building to be considered ADA accessible, though being able to like have that. And then we added this L-shaped wraparound deck to the front of the building, gave people accessibility. Right. And also we have outdoor dining there. So this allows you to enter on a flat and safe entrance. Yeah. But it was really challenging to figure that out, basically in addition to the building, in order for the parking lot, which is quite steep, so that it was safe from this kind of vast parking lot, and it was safe for people to walk and drive up there. And we do encourage people to actually enter on the side of the building rather than the front of the building. Right. Of course, there's steps in front of the building, but it's really just a sort of more delightful to enter there and kind of walk through. You can see people in the windows having their dinner. It's really cute.
But the one thing that really intrigued me about your pivot, your kind of success story, okay, was what you did during COVID.
At the beginning, like everyone, we didn't know when this thing was going to end, so we didn't know, was this a 1 month kind of break? We realized pretty soon that might go on for years. So when I bought the building in 2019, we announced we were opening in 2020. We opened in 2023. But it was one of the most strangely special times of my life because I spent 18 months on and off driving food around mostly Greene County. And I got to go back to like what I did when I first moved here, which was just drive around exploring. But this was different. It was a little bit more with intention and with a purpose. I got to meet people at their homes. I got to go down country roads that I'd never been on. I got to go down private roads. I got to see and meet people on their own terms. I got to know them. I delivered to people on behalf of their families who were living alone. So I did this, and it brought me great satisfaction because it kept me going and it kept me motivated. And I started to learn who our future and potential customer base would be because it was so word of mouth that these friends in Greenville would tell their friends in Windham, and their friends in Windham would tell their friends in Tannersville and their friends in Palinville. And I started to have a map in my head of who were friends with whom. And I started to think Julia's Local could be a central meeting place for all these people. So it really got us a little bit ahead before we opened. We actually knew who our clientele was and who they might potentially be.
It's very cool that you're talking about a centralized area because historically, and Thomas and I are both avid history buffs, but Cairo was always, as a town, the heart of Greene County. Before there were all these divided highways that now connect everything, the back roads all ran through Cairo, and you could get from Round Top to Windham, from the other side of the mountain down through here, come up 32 and around that way. It was always thought of as like the central location.
Like when was that? Because I have read that, and I can't visualize that.
That was during the late 19th century, okay? And it ran probably all the way to World War II.
So when did like Route 23 come in?
You mean the Cairo Bypass?
Yeah.
Right. This is very interesting because that happened when I was about 5 years old because I can remember my dad, they were paving during the day and then the crews would go home at night. We'd take our bikes and go ride on this huge, new, like wide open space. Prior to that time, so this would have been about 68, 67, if you were going to Greenville from Catskill, you're going to go through Cairo. If you were going to East Durham from Catskill, you're going to go through Cairo.
How?
Right through Main Street.
So was 23 like some other road? Or was no road?
There was no road. You'll see signs as you go around the county, Old Route 23.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. And then what about 32?
Well, 32 was the big connector from Kingston all the way up.
So that was always there.
That was always
yeah, but it wasn't this straight shot from Windham to Hudson.
No.
Yeah.
No. And Windham was, 145 was there, and Old 23 was not a divided highway. It went right through the towns.
Right.
So, Julia, you recently celebrated the first anniversary of Julia's Local.
Yes, and I'm still cleaning up, thank you, from our party.
So what have been some of the rewards and challenges that you found throughout your first year in business?
Well, the challenges for sure were me learning how to run a business. I have never worked in a restaurant before in my life. I knew we had the strength of Henning's cooking. He's been a chef for over 35 years, so I knew we had a solid kitchen. I think a lot of restaurants have a problem with keeping the kitchen staffed properly. That I knew that's the reason I opened Julia's Local. I wanted Henning's food in my town. And I knew that would be the draw. The challenges definitely were personal, professional. I never worked in a restaurant. I didn't know how to run a restaurant. I didn't know how to use the computer system. I didn't know how to make a cocktail. I didn't know anything about wines. Didn't really know that much about food. I don't cook. I love to eat and I love restaurants. I think what I did know was people and hospitality. And I think the challenge too was finding the right people to work here with me in the dining room. Henning has a very talented crew of people in the kitchen. People are really wanting to work with him. That has been very easy to find people who want to learn from someone like him. I'd say, I'm bragging here, but he's probably definitely one of the best chefs in the Catskills. And
you're not going to get any argument here.
Yeah, that's for sure. So that was like not the problem, but definitely getting people who sort of saw our vision to host our guests as if you're in your home. So we are a non-tipping establishment. That's really important to me. And that was hard for, I think, some people who worked in restaurant business to wrap their heads around. And the reason we're a non-tipping establishment is multiple. One is that we work universally as a team, and I want the team to feel supported, and I want them to feel valued, and I want them to feel stable. I don't want them to think, oh, it's snowing outside. No one's going to come in today. Will I make my tips? I don't want people to feel like they can't try different positions in the restaurant. We have a young woman now bartending who's never made a drink in her life. She's doing amazing. And everyone kind of works together. There's no competition. Also, because the space is so kind of unusual, there's a huge table in the back. It seats 10. There's tiny little tables up front. I don't want people to think who work here, oh, I didn't get the big table. I don't want to bust the big table if it's not my table. So it's a very unique kind of way of working, and it alleviates all the kind of stress, tension, and drama around who makes what. Everyone at Julia's Local makes exactly the same amount of money. Everyone's on a salary. So Sunny, who works in the bar, she's 22 years old, has worked 1 year in my restaurant. Henning is an incredible chef who's worked for 35 years, makes the same. Everybody makes the same. So it's a kind of united front. That's the culture we've set up. And there is no tipping in Italy, in England, in France. I mean, you leave like a little bit extra, but you're not like judging the people who are working. You know, people are paid living wages and they make it a career. That is their life's work, you know, to be in hospitality. Mm-hmm. Also, we sell things that are not the dining experience. We sell cookbooks. We sell the pottery that you're eating off of. We sell preserved food from our culinary garden. You know, we have this 1 acre culinary garden that because of COVID, we started then. We always thought we would start it 5 years after the restaurant opened, but we are now 4 years into our garden and the restaurant opened a year ago. So we sell, you know, other things. So for our guests, you know, the people who have traveled the world get it. They've had that experience themselves. And then people who, you know, maybe the first time they come here, they're a little sort of, they question it. They don't quite understand it. And then you kind of tell them what we're doing and they love it. They know what it costs to eat here. They know at the end of the meal what it's going to cost. Mm-hmm. We don't add, you know, some restaurants add 20% or add this. We don't do any of that. We kind of quasi bake it into the prices, but Henning and I talk about this so much, and it's really the cost of having a seat in our restaurant. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what you eat, doesn't matter what you drink, but it's like kind of what does it cost to be here? Mm-hmm. You know, and what's the average cost that we have to kind of come up with to make this business sustainable? Yes. And then hiring people who got that. Definitely, we were approached by a lot of people who wanted to work here but could not wrap their head around the non-tipping thing, especially bartenders. Mm-hmm. I totally respect that. I totally get it. But the way we have set up our business, and I've set it up, is that I go to the experts. So I have 2 Marks in my life. One is Mark Landsman from Elevated Catskills, who got us started on our wine list. Right. He educated us. He told me how to set up accounts. He told me about wines, what wines would fit our food profile, and how do I actually just buy them, or how do I get these? And then I've been recently introduced to this incredible wine guy. His name's also Mark, who lives in Hudson and works with a woman named Melissa, who also has a house in, I think, Prairieville. But her business is based in New York City. But what she does is she goes around mostly Europe to find small vineyards and estates, mostly family run, who are doing small production in wine. But Mark has been a tremendous collaborator with us. He also comes in, teaches us about wines that we're serving, educates all of us. So we have like these teachers. I have another teacher. Her name is Gwen, and she's a 25-year serious cocktail enthusiast. So she does all the cocktail recipes for us. Again, she knows Henning's food really, really well, knows the vibe, knows the kind of, we get recipes from her and we just follow them. It's not that hard. there's a science to making cocktails. You just follow the recipes. So we have Daniel, another incredible collaborator. He showed up when we were renovating out of the blue and told us that he had just moved to Round Top from Columbia County, and he had been working on our organic farms there for a number of years. So they have 2 young kids. His wife owns Fawn's Leap Tattoo on Main Street in Catskill. Yeah. So we hired Daniel on the spot. We didn't know him at all. So it was through his, being proactive to know that maybe he should speak with us about maybe working with us, that we now have this incredible garden. It's because of Daniel. He lives literally down the street. Like, he could walk to our house. And it was through JD that he allows us to grow the garden on his property across the street from ours. We have a little bit of a garden, like raised bed gardens on our property, but across the street, JD has 20 acres. We lease about 1.5 acres that is flat, that is sunny. He has a beautiful little pond on his property, and that's where we pull the water from. We built an irrigation system. We have a tiny little generator that pulls the water out of the pond, so we don't have to dry up anyone's wells. And so it's through, JD and Daniel and Gwen and the 2 Marks that make up Julia's Local. We see it as a whole collaborative effort. And then our last collaborator is a woman named Rita Seiko Payne, who now lives in Ithaca. But she had gone to school at Pratt, and she'd grown up near, I think, Cherry Valley, which is where I met her when she was working out of a pottery studio there. And I actually went to see her because I discovered her work in Sharon Springs at the Beekman Place. Yeah. And I met her, and then I told Henning, you have to look at her work. We need to commission her to do all of our plates and all of our pottery. So she's part of the project too. So even the artwork here is all from my own personal collection. Many of the artworks on the walls are from artists that I worked with in my previous life. But I think our guests really enjoy them because it is the story of my life here. The whole restaurant is filled with books from my collection, and there's kind of a theme. It's either cookbooks, garden books, or books about the Hudson Valley and the Catskills. And I've let people borrow them. They can take them home. They can bring them back, but they're peppered throughout the whole place. And then what's been really sweet is that some of our guests who are artists have brought me artwork for the restaurant. So this isn't a little artwork, this little orange sculpture in the sort of windowsill here between the dining room and the bar is by an artist named Tristan Frisch from Catskill. His wife runs Catskill Market, that great home goods store on Main Street.
Right. Just moved.
So I know, it's so great. Yeah. So he gifted us that for the restaurant. And so it's an evolving and growing thing, this space. Every time you come in, it's different.
So we've got this Julia's Local culture that you built.
Yeah, it's a culture.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
And so as a culture shaper, talk to me a little bit about the menu. I mean, I can't be...
Ooh, can I say one thing before we talk about that? Is that the culture of the place, this is the challenges I think I've answered. Yeah, it's really hard running a business, not going to lie. It's a lot of work. It's many, 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 many hours. However, the rewards are so worth it. And the biggest surprise, I think, that I wasn't totally expecting is all the incredible people that come here. I have an instant social life. And yes, I met people doing that delivery service, and that sort of opened me up and opened my eyes and made me a little more confident that there was a community out there that would think it was fun to come here. Of course, it's so much fun, I think, for people to come here because it's become a little bit of not only a neighborhood place, but people feel comfortable enough to feel like they're coming into my home where they're going to be introduced to people that they don't know who live in their community. So the very first week we opened, this dining room was filled with people who had never met, who lived not only on the same town, Round Top, or same hamlet, lived on the same road. I knew them all from walking my dog, right. But it was that table didn't know that they lived next door to that table. That table didn't know they were 2 doors down from that table. I don't feel uncomfortable, of course, introducing people. If they feel like they want to do that and meet people, some people run into people that they know, so they join their table. So we're constantly moving tables together and shoving tables together. I kind of know who knows who, and maybe they'll overlap. I don't want to be presumptuous to think they want to sit together. I don't know what conversation they're going to have, but the most rewarding thing has been the people who come here, getting to know them, on a whole different scale. Like, we just hosted the most beautiful Easter Sunday dinner, and we have this couple who have eaten here before. It's two older gentlemen, and one of them is going through a health crisis and is immune compromised and really wanted to come to the Easter lunch but didn't want to sit in the main dining room. So of course I said, you can sit in our little private dining room all by yourselves. You'll have the safety and security of being away from people in case someone's got a cold or something. And they just couldn't have been more delighted. You know, they were both kind of tearing up at the end that we got to take extra special care of them. But that's normal at Julia's Local. You get to know people, you get to know who likes to do this and sit there, and who has kids and how they feel comfortable. But yeah, they're all, I hope, coming for the food. We have to talk about the food. So it's based on Henning's cooking. So Henning Nordanger is the chef, and he has, like I said, been cooking for 35 years. He grew up in Bergen, Norway, and after high school, you kind of pick something to do, more of a trade. You know, he didn't go to like traditional 4-year college like we do here in the States. So it was either sort of architecture or cooking, but he kind of on a fluke picked cooking. So he started cooking, went to, cooking school. It's like a 2-year kind of apprenticeship. Got, there was a different time back then. You get a little bit abused, you get a little tortured, and you're on the brigade. It's like you could be cutting onions for 8 hours a day and the onions get thrown out. It's not good enough.
Right.
But to make a very long story short, he was cooking in large hotels in Norway, like ski resorts. And the volume of what the teams had to produce sort of set him on the path to really understand costs, understand financial concerns, understand inventory, understand portion control. But since there was these big resorts, it attracted cooks and chefs from all over Europe. So he was really working with people from Germany and Denmark and Sweden and France. And so sort of the thematic cooking there was really French cooking. And he was really under the sort of the umbrella of what's a Scoffier training. So he took that with him when he came to America. He came for a 6-month road trip and never left. So he was just he's seen more of America than I have, So he went 6 months in his car by himself and just went cross country. Ended up in New York City, decided not to go back to Norway, and started cooking there. So he, like me, wanted to also get out of the city in the sense that he knew he would never be able to afford something in the city. So he went with another chef named Cheryl and her girlfriend at the time, and bought property together. So Cheryl and her girlfriend had the big house, and he had the little cabin that had no plumbing or electricity. They shared septic, they shared a driveway, and that's when he started doing carpentry work. Of course, he's Norwegian. You grow up knowing how to build things. His father lives part-time on a boat that he built. So Henning knew how to kind of do stuff, but he really got into it when he was working on this cabin, and he started to doing side hustles of doing carpentry work. But he opened his restaurant, Henning's Local, which is very unusual, in his 40s. Most chefs open their restaurant in their 20s when you're young and you have the energy and the sort of naivety to do it. And he did it in his 40s because he couldn't find a good enough restaurant to cook at in Sullivan County. So he created his, and that's sort of how that started. And so when I started, when he opened his restaurant, Henning's Local, I was super excited for him, but I was bummed he wouldn't be my carpenter anymore. So I started going to his restaurant, and I thought his food was incredible. And I thought his philosophy about the food was really unique. And it was really based on a kind of hybrid between American comfort food, his Scandinavian influences, but really traditions in French cooking, but linked to Beaverkill Trout Hatchery. That's our big anchor at Julia's Local, and it was at Henning's Local, which is the Beaverkill Trout Hatchery is a 6th-generation run hatchery in Livingston Manor. And Sherry Shaver's the 5th generation, who is the matriarch of the farm, really, and she's in charge. And she and the hatchery supply the streams and rivers, mostly around New York State and other parts of the East Coast, with trout. So it's like brown trout, brook trout, and rainbow trout. She doesn't really supply restaurants, but Henning convinced her 12 or 13 years ago that he wanted to have her trout. So that's what we're known for. And that is I think the most unique thing about what we're doing is really the trout. Like if you come to Julia's Local and don't have trout, at least the first couple times you come, you're sort of missing the point. It's so fresh. We get it every day. We drive up there. It's 3 hours round trip. Either he or I make the journey. And it's so fresh, it's still flopping around in the morning. We serve trout sashimi, trout tartare, and usually the trout entree tray changes every day. But we have core menu items. We get chicken from the Campanelli farm in Canosa Lake, and we pick it up midway at the smokehouse on 212. Love that place. That place is incredible. We get eggs from down the road from the McManus homestead. But we're Julia's Local for the people who come here and the people who work here. Our wines are not local. Yes, we grow our own food. That is local. It's in our backyard. But, Henning gets his beef from the Midwest because he thinks it's the best. We might get salmon from the Faroe Islands. We get, lamb from New Zealand. That's what he likes and that's what he's cooking and that's what he has cooked. So that's not going to change.
So I can't wait for a meal now. No, you really just...
Well, you have to make a reservation. We're teeny tiny. So we only have 10 tables. So we do try very hard to have a reservation policy only so that we can honor the people who have made those reservations and not turn them away or not have them feel crowded at the door. But if you were to kind of stumble in and walk in, you might not get a seat. So that's why we do sort of constantly tell people call. And it also helps us to know how to staff for the day and how to prep for the day. People are with the program, they get it. If you're this is something I learned during my COVID delivery too, is that we know people are coming far to eat here. We want to take care of them. I don't want them to feel like, well, I made my reservation and why am I waiting? Why am I not at my table?
No, you're being welcomed into your
yeah.
Yeah.
So we want to take really good care of them. And I really appreciate that people do, yes, a majority of our business comes from Greene County, Ulster County, Columbia County, but people do come from Albany County, Westchester County. We've had gentlemen from Canada come down to eat here. We get a lot of people from northern New Jersey. We get a lot of people from Boston area, Massachusetts. We had a lovely couple here who came up to eat from Philadelphia. So we get people from all around. Also like the Buffalo area, Oneonta area, Syracuse. So it's kind of vast and wide. And what I've been doing when people tell me they're coming from Philadelphia, they're coming from Buffalo, is I have an itinerary for them. I give them my little favorite places to visit here. What I do for the guests that are traveling kind of far and wide from here is I have this little itinerary, I send it to them, or just recommendations. And people, and I find out first, what are you interested in? If they're interested in antiques, I have my list. If they're interested in culture and art, I have, Bard, Olana, Thomas Cole, Art Oh My. I have my little list. If they're interested in food, I have my little list of my favorite restaurants. So I've been sharing these things. Eventually, one day when I have time, I'll put it on my website. But for now, in Athens, or just like they're interested in architectural history, it's like Athens and Hudson and Catskill. I have an itinerary for all of Catskill. So I love sharing that. And even with people who live here, sometimes they haven't been to like Ravish Liquors or something like that. So I like to hear what people have done that day. And then when people are coming, I will be, how did you hear about us? And they'll say, oh, Stephen Elwood at Aetherian told me about you. Or Gus at Pigeon in Oak Hill sent me here. So a lot of guests, especially on Sundays when we do this long leisurely lunch, I ask them, what are you doing today? And they're like, this is what we're doing. And then we stop 2 or 3 places along the way that you told us to. One of the biggest surprises, Henning and I both agree with this, is that we were really surprised how many people crossed the river to come here. We just needed more reasons to stay in Greene County, more reasons to come here. So we were pretty excited when we have so many people from Hudson coming here to eat, which is great. They never cross the river to eat. So that was a big surprise for us, that we thought that would never happen. And now that's happening more and more. People from Germantown, from Ghent, from Spencertown. Those were surprises for us. But
so where do I call to get a reservation?
518-622-0021. So I always tell people, just go to my website. You can sort of see exactly what the wine list is, the pricing, the menus, the Sunday menu. We do these occasional thematic dinner parties where you buy tickets in advance. Those are for 30 people exactly. We did like this special event the other night for our 1-year anniversary. That was also a fundraiser for Wave Farm and WGNC. So we had 100-something people show up. They had pre-purchased tickets. We sold 100 tickets in like an hour. But that's like these core super fans we have, you know. So that was super fun and very positive to see so many familiar faces. We have like hardcore regulars already 1 year into business, which is awesome.
So what does the future hold for Julia's Local?
Short-term future is just really getting through the summer. We are really trying to be strategic about hiring more people. We just hired a couple more people and training them so that we're really, really, really ready for the summer. So we feel in control and we can serve our customers and our guests really well. That is such a simple answer. But Henning and I have plans and fantasies about doing philanthropic dinners in the garden itself. We want to do the whole meal from the famous Danish movie Babette's Feast. We want to have, I woke up this morning thinking this is not going to be possible this summer, but we have fantasies and plans about having weekend sort of almost like a little farmer's market off of our deck in the mornings. There's just not enough hours in the day, so we can really share things from the garden with people who like to eat here and want to take something home. We preserve things, we pickle things, we have other things that we want to offer. We make 3 or 4 different kinds of breads every day. People keep asking if they can just buy it from us, and we can't because we don't make enough. We don't have enough for the restaurant. So maybe one day, maybe if it's not this summer, the next summer. I mean, these are just like these building blocks of Julia's Local can be transformed and evolve over time. But right now we're just trying to kind of week by week keep our regulars really taken care of. And we have like the repeats who come maybe once a month. Amazing. Keep them surprised with things that we're offering off the menu. We're trying new desserts all the time, little things like that. We're experimenting with certain dishes all the time. So like if you come on a Sunday, you'll probably be testing something with us. You know, we're constantly having people try things that aren't on the menu yet.
Well, while you may be a best-kept secret of Greene County now, you're rapidly not becoming one. Okay, so this is...
No, I tell people if you live here, please come on a Thursday. Yeah. It's quieter. It's our first day open. We're much fresher, meaning Henning and myself, our staff. It's more of a neighborhood joint on Thursdays. It's much more relaxed. Sundays are my favorite day here. It's sunny in here. It's a little bit longer it's 1 to 6. We have a little bit more time with people. We have families here. We have multi-generational sort of families here. One of my most favorite memories of the whole year was that we had at that back table, which seats 10, we had a family of 4 generations. Wow. We had great grandpa in his wheelchair with his healthcare worker, with his daughter, his daughter's daughter, and the daughter's son, baby Mateo. So we had the whole family here, 4 generations, and that was incredibly moving for us, that we are the place where they feel safe. And then the granddaughter, Andrea, comes in at least every other week with baby Mateo and some other new group of friends and family members. So she just keeps coming. And she tells me it's her safe place, you know. So that's how we hope people feel about Julia's Local. They come for the food and stay for the vibe, you know.
And that's one of the most important things. I mean, the overarching theme that we're seeing as we're visiting all of these really great businesses across Greene County, and in our work with the Greene County Economic Development Corporation is we've got to promote our businesses. We've got to make our customers aware, consumers aware of where they are, but we also are promoting our communities and the destination businesses that are embedded in the communities in Greene County really are the special sauce. I mean, that's what makes the unique experience. And so maybe you're part culture shaper, part community organizer, and definitely wonderful vision as an entrepreneur.
Well, thank you so much. I want to add something to that. I agree with you so much. I have seen so much starting my own business about the respect I have for all these small businesses, because I feel like what you can do in Greene County is that you can just be really into your thing and you can do that thing. So you can be a small business entrepreneur if you're really passionate about like the thing you're into, like Sarah and her antiques. The core thing that drives you, that wakes you up and gets you motivated. For Henning, it's cooking, it's food, it's the garden. For him, the garden is really the project and the restaurant is sort of the side project. For me, it's the people who come here is the project. I am so proud serving his food. I already know it's great. I don't have to worry about that. But it just keeps surprising me over and over and over again. But if you are true to yourself, you can do it. But I wouldn't say that about any other place in any other place I've lived or worked. You know, I've lived in New York City. I've lived in Toronto. It's different. It's transactional.
Yeah.
You know, you're always looking across the room for someone better. You're looking like past someone else's shoulder for someone better who can get you to the next thing. Here, I think you do your thing and you hope people will find you, however they find you. You just keep doing your thing.
That's so awesome. And, you know, it has been an absolute pleasure having this conversation with you and learning all of the things that you've been able to enlighten us about. So on Best Kept Secrets of Greene County, New York, we try to pride ourselves on having a reveal. What is a best kept secret? And Julia's Local is indeed the reveal. I mean, everything that you've showed us and talked to us about is pretty much the reveal, but we can tie it a little bit to the local history. We were talking earlier about the fact that this was Hartmann's. My grandmother, my father's mother, came up here with her husband and 4 kids in 1927, and until right through World War II, every weekend, she would make cookies with the Hartmanns. When I think of the fact that Henning now is cooking in the same kitchen that my grandmother cooked in.
That's incredible.
So that's
I love that.
And it lives on.
So, Julia, thank you so much for taking the time to sit with us today. It's been incredible learning all your stories.
Thanks so much for coming. I can't wait to host you for dinner or drinks.
Well, that's a wrap on today's episode of the Best Kept Secrets of Greene County, New York podcast. Join us next time.
We'll be letting the Catskills out of the bag in Tannersville, New York, a multi-generational business.
But until then, we have places to go, things to do, and stories to tell.